the meeting. So again, good morning, everybody. This is the Long-Range Transportation Plan Pathways to the Future Advisory Work Group meeting. This is the fourth meeting, and I think we can get started. Sid, is the recording on progress?
Yes, we are recording in live.
Okay, thank you, Sid. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing is the attendance. Please write your name and the agency you represent in the chat box so that we can record your attendance to this meeting at this time. While folks are recording their attendance, I just wanted to ask if there is anything which you want to correct in the March 26 meeting summary, then this is the time now. If everybody is fine, then we can go to the next agenda item. Okay, hearing none, the third item is the public comment period. I haven't received any written comments from the public for this meeting. Sid, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak now?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, seeing none, we close the public comment period. The next item in the agenda is the LRTP progress update. So this is just the a 5-minute brief update of the progress and get you all oriented. So you have all seen this process for multiple times, but I would keep sharing this in all meetings for the first 4 or 5 minutes so that everybody is oriented to the process which we are working on. So as we all can see, it's a cyclic process. We start with the baseline data development, which has already been completed. We did the scenario analysis, which has been adopted by the policy board. And we are working on strategic direction and the transportation needs assessment parallelly. Once those would be done, we'll be working on the universal project development, which we have a slight introduction today. We'll start that process today. And the next phase is once we complete these 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll progress into the 6, 7, and 8 eventually. Same slide with a little bit of digestive material for the public rather than saying it as it is understandable by the transportation community. So same thing. I just wanted to give a brief update on what we have accomplished until now, so that you are aware of these things. I think I mentioned about these in the first meeting, but just to give you a little bit of further information about these. So the first phase is the baseline data development, which would be used in this process. And as we discuss the goals and objectives, we compare some of the objectives, track those based on what we have in the base year and the future baseline year. So just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of what we have already done. So it's basically the baseline growth assumptions, and the result was the socioeconomic data in which we projected population, households, employment, and automobiles to 2050, which is the horizon year of this plan. And the data is called socioeconomic data. It was adopted by the policy board. It had a steering committee or the working group made of representatives of the localities and other state and federal partners. The report is out. We have a data dashboard. The data is available in all 3 levels. So it's at the TAZ level, which is the sub-jurisdictional level, similar to, I would say, census block group. And then we have the jurisdictional level data as well as the regional level data. So We have a dashboard in which all those information is already there. So we have the executive summary of the data, if you just want to look at the data, and then we have the full report, which has the detail by each TAG. We also have a story map and a dashboard. So if you want to look into these, there's a link there. And once I provide the slides to you, you can review those as well. And then we have phase 2, which is the exploratory scenario planning process, Pathway to the Future, which we did. This was the first comprehensive scenario planning process for the Richmond region. We developed 5 scenarios. We developed scenario evaluation tool as well. We also finalized 11 predictive models, 65 performance measures, and then we combine those performance measures to digestible format called indices, which is much more digestible by the general public. And we have a report and the story map. The policy board adopted it last year, so this is also done, which would be used in this long-range transportation planning process later on. So just wanted to give you a heads up. So again, this whole there's a web page in our Plan RVA website where you will get all information. We have the process documentation report. We have the future scenario results, as well as there's a couple of pages in which you would get quick information about what the process was. So again, if you want to explore this, there's a link there, and you can explore to that. So again, even though our process is cyclic, there's distinct 2 processes which we are working on. One is the strategic direction, which is the development of vision, goals, and objectives. The other one is the needs analysis. Once we have the needs, then we'll convert those needs into projects, and then we'll develop a project prioritization process, and then score those projects and finalize the constraint lean. So this is a straightforward process, but we have the other parallel process. Some of the input in the goals and objectives would define the project inclusion guidelines, as well as how we would assess transportation needs and how would we prioritize projects. So this is just, again, a reminder. You have already seen this slide. The final thing is just a recap on what's going on and what's coming. So for phase 3, we had a pretty good discussion on goals and objectives last time through breakout rooms. There would be a follow-up discussion today, and the next meeting, which is on May 28th, I would ask this group to finalize the goals and objectives and strategies so that we can get the recommendation for the policy board and ask for their approval for the final goals and objectives. Similarly, task 4, we are working on the transportation issues and needs identification. We'll have a presentation on our technical report C, State of the Transportation Report today. The first draft of the regional needs inventory and maps, that's tentatively scheduled for next meeting. We're still working on it. And the subsequent meeting after that, we'll ask this group so that we can finalize the needs and ask for recommendation for the policy board. Similarly, we are working on 2 detailed technical reports, the structural inventory and assessment, as well as the congestion management process. Both of those reports would be available by July for you to review and comment. We also have ongoing public engagement for phase 4, which is the needs analysis, which is scheduled to end by April 30. It's going to be a continuous process, but for analysis, as well as coming up with themes of what we heard from the public, we need a deadline. So that's the deadline we chose, so that we can accommodate what we heard from the public into the overall needs assessment and provide you the overall complete needs assessment inventory in the next meeting. So that's why we are ending this first phase of public engagement on April 30th. The phase 5, which is the universe of project developments, will start the discussion today with the regional project inclusion guidelines. And then if everything goes fine, we can come up with an agreement on what projects to be included in the long-range transportation plan next week. Um, Internally, staff is also working for data work, the models and tool which we'll be using in task 3, 4, and 5. So that's going on internally as well. So that's all I have for this quick overview. Any questions or concerns, comments before I move into the next section? Okay, hearing none, we can move into the next part of the agenda, which is the LRTP Phase 3 discussion, what matters most for the future, developing the goals, objectives, as well as strategies. So I'm going to quickly run a few slides, which you have already seen, but just to make the context that what is needed in this phase, it's basically what we have to look at is the agency's regional strategic plan, the transportation vision and guiding principle, which has already been finalized based on what we had done last time. Then we have the goals and objectives and strategies, which is under the purview of this group. And then we are working on the system-wide and project-level performance measures, which would take some time to finalize, but we have seen a little bit of those as well. So what's the end product of this phase is basically reconfirming the vision statement and guiding principle from our previous long-range transportation plan, Connect RVA 2045, development of goals and objectives and strategies for this plan, and then performance measure framework for the 2050 LRTP. So the tentative date for policy board adoption is August 2025. That's when they will be meeting. So we think we'll be on schedule, on time for this process. So yeah, again, just to recap, we had the vision statement from last time. We had 7 guiding principles, which has been adopted. I'm not going into detail, but any tweak to this would be at the policy board level. Then we have the goals, strategies, objectives, and PM. We have a definition for each, which you have already seen multiple times. We have the established 4 goals for this plan: safety, sustainability, reliability, and resiliency. And then again, I just wanted to recap that there's federal planning factors which we need to consider. We have 10 federal planning factors, as well as 7 national performance goals from MAP 21, which we need to consider when we actually finalize those goals or define those goals and objectives. This is just a crosswalk of the goals, federal goals, as well as what we are proposing and how they align. You have already seen this. And then finally, just a recap on what we are thinking about defining objectives is basically using a SMART definition or SMART technique, which is specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-bound. So now let's go into a little bit detail on what we had discussed last time. So anything is in red is something which came out of that meeting, and it was based on the discussion the advisory committee members had, and we tweaked it based on those discussion. So for goal A, safety, a transportation system where no one is killed or seriously injured. Based on the conversation and the advisory work group discussion, we added, and people feel secure and comfortable regardless of how they travel. The first objective remains the same. Only thing which we added is that compared to 2022, because we have the baseline numbers, and instead of saying our roads, we said all roadways in the Richmond region. So that clearly says that it's all roadways, not other roadways, which I'll be talking about later on. Then we added 2 more objectives based on the discussion, and it aligns with what the federal performance measures is and what the state and the MPO have to report. So basically, the rate of people being killed or seriously injured, so it's per 100 million VMT, as well as the number of people killed or seriously injured while biking and walking. So pulling that category separately as it is reported in the performance measures. So I think that's we have the base year values as well, what 2022 numbers look like. And then we need to discuss what the target percentage of reduction for all safety objectives would be. So again, we have this aspirational target, which is Vision Zero, which means 0 deaths and serious injuries. That comes out to be like 100% reduction. Again, it's an aspirational target, very hard to achieve. State also had set some aspirational targets, state meaning the CTB Transportation, Commonwealth Transportation Board, which is 2% annual reduction of all fatalities and serious injuries. So if we look at that reduction, annual reduction, and compound it for 28 years, which is 2050, our horizon year is 2050, our base year data is 2022, so that's 28 years. That reduction approximately comes out to be 44%. Again, that's pretty aspirational. The realistic target is, I would say, in line 10 to 20%. Because one thing is that our purview in this plan is only for major projects in the LRTP network, which we'll be discussing later on, and the crashes and injuries in all networks. So the plan would not have its purview on modifying everything or all roads. So we only have a subset of roads in which we can actually work on in this plan. Whereas there's other roads as well where this crashes and injuries would happen. So it's up to the group to decide whether we want to go to an aspirational target, which is hard to achieve, or take the state's aspirational target, which is a little bit lesser than that, or look into much more realistic target, which is 10 to 10%. I think that's still difficult to achieve, 10 to 20%. If you look at 2050, when VMT is definitely going to rise, I guess. Even though the VMT per capita might decrease, the overall VMTs would be increasing. So we have a population growth of almost 34% from what we had in 2017. So there's that new people, 30% more people, as well as the VMT is increasing. So again, reduction of what we have now by 10 to 20% is still difficult to achieve. So just wanted to ask any reactions on thoughts on this, or we can wait till the end after I finish all my presentation. So it's up to the group to discuss this. Okay, so we can move forward and probably discuss this later on. There's been some, I think, changes in the strategies, spelling out the complete street policies like daylighting and proven countermeasures, just highlighting those things, as well as adding the word dangerous behaviors. So other than that, I think we all agreed on what the strategies were there were fine. Sustainability, I think the general definition, we added the word land use. So meeting the transportation needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. This involves considering social, economic, land use, and environmental factors. So that the land use was added based on the discussion. Goal B is basically a transportation system that provides choices. I think we altered the word and meets the needs of current generation. I think we had a different word. I think we said people living today, rather than saying that, we said of the current generation, and provides the same opportunities for future generations. The objectives remain the same. So instead of using the bars, we actually use the word port. The base year value for the freight volume moved by rail or port is 5.10% of all volume. And again, this is pretty difficult and not under, I would say, straightly under the purview of this plan. We have to look into the capital improvements at the port and how much more volume they would be able to transfer, those kind of things. But looking at the target value of 50% increase from what it is now seemed to be reasonable to me. So that's what I'm suggesting. Then we have the percentage X percentage of average more jobs and destination are accessible within 30 minutes by all modes: driving, transit, walking, and biking. So the base year values needs to be calculated, but based on what we had done previously and looked at the previous plan, what we saw is that if we break it down by modes, the target increase, it's for autos to reach more jobs within 30 minutes. We already have a pretty good infrastructure. We don't have much congestion, so the target is 2% by autos. By transit, if we add new transit, if there's no service out there, more people will be able to reach out to jobs. So looking at what we had done previously, 30% was what we had, around that number was what we had achieved in transit. Biking, since we are adding a lot of infrastructure, the fall line trail would be hopefully completed by 2050. So that's going to add a lot of cross-jurisdictional bikeways, as well as looking at what we had achieved last time, 15% increase in walking. So overall, to make sure that we are realistic, and again, we won't know the numbers until we actually develop the plan, finalize the constraint plan, and calculate this. It's a pretty tedious calculation, very technical in nature. So I'm suggesting overall 20% would be a pretty good target. 20% more jobs and destination accessible within 30 minutes by all modes. I think that's pretty much realistic target. B3 is basically the percentage of residences and jobs within half mile of high frequency transit. We added high frequency word, as well as we added the word park and ride. I forgot to highlight it with red, but that wasn't there earlier. So it's basically high frequency public transit and park and ride lots increased by 10%. The base year value, we have to refine it. It's based on a very crude methodology now, so we'll refine it. We'll see that it'll definitely come down from what it's stated now. And the target is whatever we have in the base year, increase it by 10%. This is because even though we would have increased transit, anticipated increased transit coverage in 2050, the way we are growing, it's mostly, we are growing in the central city also, but most growth which we are seeing in the Richmond region is in the suburbs. And in rural fringes, which is near the suburbs. So currently, we don't have any transit out there. So even though the population would increase, again, if we are calculating the overall number of people reaching out to within half a mile of transit would increase if you just calculate the sheer number. But if you look at the percentage, it's only going to increase by 10% because there's a 30% increase in population. Even though we have more coverage, more people, the overall population of the region is also increasing. So that's why the target increase is around 10%. The next one is the average daily vehicle miles traveled, and the average number of vehicle miles traveled per person per year is reduced by X%. Based on 2022 VDOT numbers, the actual numbers, the average daily VMT per person is around, I think last time I calculated around 31. It's a little bit less than that. It's 30.5 miles per day. And this is not just commute, it's all trips. So commute is, I think the average commute is, I think 28 miles or a little bit less than that, but this is all, it's VMT, so it's commute per other trips people make. And then the average daily VMT is basically that multiplied whatever the population we have in 2022. So the target value, average daily VMT, reduction is aspirational again. It's, as I think along with the fatalities and crashes, I think the state uses almost 2% of increase VMT annually. If you look at that 2% annual increase and compound it, it's going to be around 75%. But I think we would somehow be lesser than what it is compounded 2% annually. So realistically speaking, I think based on some of the projections done in moves and those kind of things, those kind of models, it's around the periphery of like 25 to 30%, which is pretty much conservative. So again, I don't know what the group wants to go. The reduction is aspirational. The realistic is an increase, actually increase in 25%. And average daily VMT per capita, that might, again, we have the trips might be shorter if we have jobs and household nearby. We do see those things based on the data we have developed. So shorter trips for people, some people, not all people. So, and then we are thinking an overall reduction of 2% might be pretty aggressive as well. So again, that's what I'm suggesting. So if we are increasing like 1% of 30 miles is 3 or 0.3, right? So it's going to be a little bit less, around 28, 29 miles. I think that's the daily VMT, which is going to happen realistic. Again, we don't know now. We have to actually see based on the changes we made in the LRTP. But I think that's 2% is still an aggressive target reduction, VMT per capita. Again, the last one is transportation related emissions. So instead of spelling out like the NOx and VOCs and carbon, we lump summed everything. So make it simple. So all transportation related emissions are reduced by X%. We still have to calculate the base year value, but the target reduction is 35% based on the electric vehicle penetration is 50%, at least 50% by 2050. I think we can say we don't have the concrete data, but I think we can say the electric vehicle penetration is around 7 to 8% now, and that's not the regional number. It's an average number people use based on nationwide data. We don't know the actual number in the Richmond region, but that's the penetration rate now, 7 to 8%, and we are saying that by 2050 the electric vehicle penetration rate would be 50%. Along with the changes in vehicle technologies, I think a 35% target reduction should be reasonable. We can go more higher than that, but I believe like again, the emissions is not just related to VMT. Obviously, VMT is one of the major criteria in transportation related emissions, but also it also relates with speed. So as we have seen, the emissions increase below the speed of 20, and again it tends to decrease from 20 miles per hour to 65 miles per hour, and then it increases after that speed again. So again, it depends upon congestion as well. So again, we are the population is increasing, the VMT is increasing, so it might be logical to say that there might be more congestion. So even though the penetration rate is 50%, the reduction might just be 35% because there might be more emissions based on congestion as well. So not much changes in the strategies. I think the only change was to say that transit would be to make a transit a desirable option. But other than that, same thing. Nothing much changed based on our conversation. And then finally, reliability. Nothing much change in the Dunlop definition. We just the group thought that the reliability is mostly talking only about highways. So I think there was a consensus that we need to talk about active transportation and public transit as well in terms of reliability, and then those modes of transportation are also promoted. So that word has been added. So objectives, C1, peak hour traffic delays are reduced by X% across the major highway corridors. And I'll come across what we mean by the major highway corridors in the Richmond region. We need to calculate that, but again, the actual delays being reduced is again aspirational. As VMT is going to increase, the population is going to increase. So realistically saying that the delays is going to be more, we'll have more congestion in the future for sure, based on what we know. So realistically, it's 10% increase, but again, if the group wants to go with the aspirational context, then obviously 10% reduction is what we can think about. But again, it's going to be totally difficult to achieve that target. Again, the next objective is the number of single occupancy vehicle trips. So single occupancy vehicle trips in all trips. So if all trips is 100%, that's around 58.26 now. The target reduction is 10%. And I think it might be achievable. People taking more transit. The other mode share in the region is pretty negligible. So transit is pretty less, bike fare is pretty less, walking is negligible. So I think we can push to high occupancy vehicles, obviously more transit, more bike and ped trips, but 10% is what I think would be an achievable target. Again, difficult to achieve, but might be achievable based on what we plan to do with this plan. Again, the annual transit ridership is based on the what GRTC reported to National Transit Database in 2023. So unlinked trips divided by the total number of days. So it comes out to be 25,000. I think it was a little bit low. I think it's started to increase now. So the target increase is 75 to 100% based on the increase in our catchment area to transit, based on our assumption that some of the BRT lines would be extended. We might be able to add some of the other local routes as well. So capture those new people which normally didn't have access to transit. So let's say we have 25,000 now. If we reach to 50,000, I think that should be a reasonable target in next 28 years by 2050. The 2050, the next one, C4, is the miles of dedicated infrastructure for biking and walking. So the base year value was 186 miles. So that includes all biking infrastructure in the Richmond region. The target increase is 25%. It's not that much because, again, under the purview of this plan, we are only looking at cross-jurisdictional major bikeways. So other bikeways which the localities might add would not be added in this plan. So that's why the target increase is 25%. Mostly the completion of four-line trail, and if we have any other big those big projects, we can add more mileage. But that's why the target is 25%. And while we'll be discussing about the next phase of the plan, which is phase 5, the universal projects, we'll be talking about what are the different projects which would be suitable for the LRTP. So that's a conversation which we'll be having later on. Again, the next objective is by 2050, X% of bridges and culvert deck areas on the national highway system are classified as good and poor conditions. So base year condition, good condition is 6.5, and then the poor condition is 4.5. So there's as you can see, there's a big chunk of percentage in the what we call as the fair category. And as we progress, like as the bridges become older, they tend to go from the fair condition to the poor condition, right? Unless it's rehabilitated or reconstructed. So I think we would have a chunk of money in the constraint plan for the state of good repair bridge projects. So we can allocate all those money into the bridges, and we can look at the actual um, uh, deck area which would be rehabilitated or reconstructed into good categories. We can actually calculate that. But again, there's a fair amount of bridges which is in the fair condition, and but with time, as we all know, they would start deteriorating. So VDOT has started a new condition in the general condition rating, which is the bridge condition, which is from 0 to 10, I guess. So 0 to I think 3 or 4. 4 is poor, and they have started a fifth. The category 5 is what they call as the cusp bridges, like those bridges which are just a little bit higher than the poor condition and which would eventually deteriorate. So we can look at those bridges. There's a lot of bridges in the cusp condition. So that's why the target is just to have 10% in good condition. I think that's a pretty aggressive target. But on the other hand, in which we have like 4.5, 15% poor condition bridges, the aspirational target would to have nothing in poor condition and have all those 90% other bridges into fair condition. So that's the target. But again, I don't know if we'll be able to reach this or not. Again, some aspirational content here. And then finally, the X percentage of payments on the national highway system are in good condition. So we have a pretty good condition now, 59.9. I think the state average is 40 or 45. I think that's the target. So we are above the state average and what the state targets. But again, it would be good to have some aspirational target. So we are already 60%. So I thought maybe 70% would be a good target. Again, this the payment condition is basically based on the maintenance fund, which is normally taken off the top from the constrained budget. And I guess obviously we would have certain amount of money for our district and for our MPO to be worked on payment conditions, and we can calculate how much of those would be. Again, the same with bridges. The payments as time passes, it would deteriorate. So again, if we even if we have like 70, 50, 60% in good condition now, things would start to change as we progress, right? Based on the natural deterioration of the condition. So again, target value 70% is aspirational and pretty aggressive as well. Nothing changed in the strategies. I think we had some discussion and some comments, but I didn't see any strong comments to change any of the strategies. Finally, resiliency. We added the word prepares, so that was missing. So a transportation system that prepares, adapts, and recovers quickly from disruptions caused by natural disasters, extreme weather events, and other emergencies. So that word prepares was added. Objectives, nothing changed in the objectives for resiliency. This is a pretty new thing which we are doing. Not much of a literature as well for these kind of analysis. This is what we are doing for the first time. So it will take some time. We have not been able to calculate the base year values for the objectives. One thing which we changed was the LRTP road network instead of saying major corridors. And I'll come up with what the LRTP road network is and what the major road corridors is later on. Again, the objective D2 wasn't changed much, but the only thing which changed was when we do the redundant routes calculation, we only look at the major highway corridors. And this is basically to make sure that we have enough time for analysis. So if we try to do for all roads, it's going to take a longer time to do that analysis. So just so that we are within our limits of time constraint. So that's why we only chose like to do for the major highway corridors. And then we added the last objective based on network connectivity. So I think the redundant route as well as how the system response is important, but how well the connectivity of the major routes or the LRTP network is with the minor routes is also important. So even though, let's say, we have a water surge, we don't have any water surge in the major routes. If we have water surge in the minor routes, again, that that would not help anybody reaching out from their houses to jobs or any other things, because it won't be connected because those roads will be out. So just to do, we added this new objective, which is basically a pure GIS exercise to see what is the network connectivity of minor roads to major roads and how we can increase that in the long range transportation plan. And again, as I said, we don't have the baseline numbers. This is a new thing which we are doing. Um, and I thought it would be safe to say that for all resiliency objectives, it would be good to say a 10% increase. But again, we don't know much about this, and we wouldn't know until the plan has been finalized. But for just for the sake, a 10% might be a reasonable target increase. We added a bunch of strategies based on the conversation. So we only had 2 strategies. So we added like 6 more strategies, like prioritizing developing the redundant route, modal corridors, overall increasing the network connectivity, which is uh, basically what we talked about with that objective. Then again, it talks about the communication strategies as well as community engagement, which is important in resiliency, system resiliency. Develop a response mechanism for different system disruptors, and then again incorporate VDOT snow removal and severe weather responses standards, as well as look at GRTC snow renewal plans, and then also provide the diversion and detour routes to the public, so that they are well aware of the process. So a lot of new strategies. I think we can combine a few of those strategies into one. Instead of 8, we could probably combine into 6. Combine the community engagement into one. So we'll work on that as well. So that's all based on what we had received comments and the discussion last time. Before we start on further discussion, I just wanted to give you what we meant by the LRTP network. So, so basically, we have to look into LRTP is long range transportation plan for the reason. So we have to look at something which is reasonably significant. The definition of reasonably significant is pretty gray, based on federal code. So it's up to the region to decide what is reasonable. And what we are proposing here is basically 2 things. So we are proposing that we add all national highway system roadways, which is of national importance. That is spelled out in federal code that the LRTP projects should consider anything which is national importance. So obviously the national highway system includes interstates, other major principal arterials, and then strategic highway networks. It's basically anything other than the interstate and principal arterial which connects to anything which is national importance, like defense, those kind of things, economy, intermodal things as well. Those highways, as well as the roads which connects to those strategic highway network, which are not in interstate and principal arterials, as well as the intermodal connectors. So anything which connects to our ports, which connects to our airport, which connects to our railway stations, should be there. For example, Deepwater Terminal Road, it's not an interstate, it's not a principal arterial, but it connects our interstate to the Port of Virginia, the Richmond Marine Terminal. So that's an intermodal connector, which would otherwise not be in the LRTP network. So, so that we have that of national importance, and then since it's a regional plan, we have to look at which is important statewide and which is also important region-wide. So for that, we looked at Virginia's primary state highways. So the definition is it basically connects jurisdiction. These primary highways connects jurisdiction, as well as it connects with the major arterials and normally the interstates as well. And then in VDOT numbering system, the route numbers is normally below 600. So anything route number below 600 is what we are including in the LRTP network. So if we combine both, and that's what we are getting as the LRTP network. So this is how it looks like. So it's widespread across all localities. Some of the minor roads, the intermodal connectors, we can't see those in this map because those are a little bit smaller, like the Deepwater Terminal Road. We can't see that. But this is what we are proposing. And later on, when we will discuss the LRTP project inclusion guidelines for the roadway projects, the projects have to be in this network to be qualified for the long-range transportation plan. And that's what we are proposing. And then the last thing is the major highway corridors. So this is basically chosen for analysis only. It's not saying that these are the only major corridors in the Richmond region. So, but looking at the VMT and the travel, it looks like these would make the bulk of travel in our region. And it's mostly chosen for the evaluation analysis purpose. There's no other thing, like it's not based that if we have a project in these corridors, it'll score more or anything. It's just purely for analysis purpose. And as you can see that not all corridors have been chosen and not all segments have been chosen. So based on the time constraint, that's the major reason we chose this. So we chose the major corridors, obviously I-95. We didn't choose the whole segment from Hanover County line to Chesterfield County line, but we chose from Kings Dominion to downtown. I-64 basically from 288 in the west to the airport exit, which is 197. I-295, we chose the complete section in our region, north end to south end. 288, we chose the complete section, north end to south end. Route 60, we chose mostly the section in the south from Westchester Commons in Chesterfield to downtown. Broad Street, 250, mostly from West Creek in Goochland County to downtown. And again, Route 360, Hull Street from Otto Road in Hull Street to downtown in Richmond. So these are the major roads. The only reason we didn't choose others, like you would say like Powhite Parkway or Chippenham Parkway, is basically just of time constraint. So, and this is much more regional in nature. And also looking at the VMT would have the major VMT in our region as well. So we'll be, as you can see in the objectives, we have, we will do analysis based on the major highway corridors, and in some cases we look at the LRTP network. So I thought it would be good to spell out what the LRTP network is and what the major corridors are. So I think I have one last slide for this before we start into discussion. So based on the agenda as well as some changes in the presentation slides, which will be provided to you after the meeting, we are asking the advisory work group to provide any final comments on the goals, objectives, and strategies by Friday, May 11th, end of business. At the same time, staff will calculate the final baseline values. We need to calculate some of the more difficult calculations involving the travel demand model and some of the other GIS tools which we need to develop, and recommend percentage changes, increment or reduction for all objectives. We have certain reduction targets or increment target already stated. Some of them are aspirational, some of them are realistic. So again, it's up to the group to choose which way to go. And then once we receive your comments, we'll incorporate all the comments and send it back to you before the next at the next meeting, May 28 meetings agenda. So it'll come to you before a week. And then final discussion and recommendation of the goals and objectives in the next meeting. I think based on our timeline, we definitely need this this consensus by this group in the next meeting, so that we can finalize this, and I think we'll have board meeting on August. We don't have a June meeting, so that we'll present this to the policy board and then move forward with the plan. So that's all I have. Any comments, concern, questions? Obviously, I received some comments after the agenda was sent, but I haven't been able to incorporate those now. I already have those in my mind. So this is going to change a little bit based on the comments I have already received. But again, is there any comments or concerns now? Or if not, then you have until May 11th to send out any comments or concerns, and staff will incorporate those changes. Okay, seeing none, we move to the next agenda item. I would suggest sending out any comments by that day. So because we need some time to, if there's a major change, we need some time to calculate the changes as well, which is because we have to quantify it. It requires some time to do that. So please send any final comments by May 11th. Thank you. Okay, the next item in the agenda is LRTP Phase 4, and Dorian would be talking about the state of the transportation report, followed by Carrie, who's going to talk about the story map, existing condition story map. So up to you, Dorian. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Sulab. Just let me pull up my presentation here. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see your screen, Dorian.
Awesome, thank you. So I just want to give a little background of the document. This is a culmination of the LRTP existing conditions analysis, which seeks to understand the current state of the regional transportation network before we evaluate potential long-range projects and issues within the region. It evaluates current transportation networks, mode of transportation, public policies, capital improvements, and emerging technologies, and allows us to focus on key trends, developments, and future projections. This includes travel behaviors, multimodal travel, congestion, and safety. So this allows us to answer a few questions along the way as we develop our existing conditions analysis. Are there gaps in the existing network that needs to be addressed for future demand? Will congestion likely worsen or shift to different areas? What is the state of safety? And are there areas that need to be addressed, underserved areas that need to be addressed? So the state of transportation can be encompassed in 3 areas of focus: transportation, economic development, and resiliency. Within the transportation section, we focus on highways, active transportation, transit and passenger rail, freight, and alternative transportation. With respect to economic development and resiliency, we want to highlight the nexus between these areas of planning and transportation as a way to highlight what are the additional factors that we use to score projects. So we want to answer a number of different questions here. Do certain projects facilitate safe and efficient travel to points of interest? Are projects located in areas of high vulnerability to natural or man-made disasters? So within economic development, we focus on housing and commuting. Additionally, within transportation resiliency, we focus on vulnerable transportation assets and other natural resources that coincide with our transportation network. Within the highway section, we focus on functional classification, which defines the role that a particular roadway segment plays in serving the flow of traffic throughout the network. So we discuss arterials, collectors, local roads, as well as national highway system, the national highway system, excuse me. Under safety, we're looking at what are the locations and magnitude of fatalities and serious injuries within the region, and then where are the road segments that are most impacted by these crashes within the high injury network. For congestion, we look at where in the region are the most congested areas and how do they rank with other road segments throughout the region. For bridges and structures, this is basically our maintenance section. We look at the condition of bridges and structures, and then the number of percentage in poor condition. We also highlight toll roads within the report as well. Under active transportation, we look at the location and the type of pedestrian infrastructure. So we look at miles of bike lanes, shared use paths, cycle tracks, and mixed use paths per locality. We also look at pedestrian facilities in progress. So, of course, the Fall Line Trail, Capitol Trail, any road reconfigurations that we have within the region. And then locality comprehensive plan and complete street initiative updates. So this section really leans in on local, regional, and national level initiatives as we plan for safer bike and pedestrian travel and options throughout the area. Under transit and passenger rail, we look at the current GRTC system service and service enhancements. So we look at the local, express, and BRT routes, as well as their frequency. We look at link micro transit zones, paratransit services, and transfer center updates as well. We also look at demand response, park and ride, and van pool, carpool services within the area. And then we discuss regional passenger rail boardings by station for the calendar years of 23 and 24. This is important when we look at passenger rail enhancements, as we look at growing demand for passenger rail, intercity rail. We also want to focus in on those rail projects that allows us to free up track space and alleviate congestion so we can accommodate that demand going forward. Under the freight section, of course, this area of transportation has been given a lot more emphasis in our planning efforts, particularly within the UPWP and associating deliverables. In doing so, we wanted to focus on some of the main freight-related data points. So within the rail network, we look at the percentage of total freight shipped by rail, miles of track, and then at-grade rail crossing. So we really want to focus in on the safety aspect of our rail network. We look at the cargo shipped through the airport. We look at origin and destination commodity flow through trucking. And then we focus in on the Richmond Marine Terminal. So we look at the Port of Virginia all port impacts, and then the Richmond Marine Terminal contributions to those impacts, and then the commodity flow. A lot of this data comes from the freight analysis framework, but we are working with VDOT to develop more granular level information through Transearch that allows us to get to a county by county basis of commodity flow throughout the region. And then we also look at alternative transportation. So the state of micromobility, what scooter vendors are operating within the area and how they work to fill specific gaps within the region as well. We look at alternative fuel vehicles. So what are the location and types of charging stations by locality? And then we look at the state of autonomous vehicles. And we also look at transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft, and then shared mobility, the state of shared mobility within the region. As we get into housing and community development, we really want to focus on, again, that nexus between these areas of planning and transportation. So what are the commuting patterns? Where people are living versus where they're working? How are they getting to work? What mode of transportation are they using? Of course, mostly is going to be car, but what are the percentage of people that are biking, walking, and taking other modes of transportation as well to and from work? And then what are the commuting times? What is the average commuting time? We have that separated by locality. And then we have a regional average as well. One of the new, I guess, provisions, federal law provisions that we have to focus in on is travel and tourism. This has come down in the FAST Act and is maintained within the IIJA, which tells metropolitan planning organizations to consider the enhancement of travel and tourism and the factor for long-range transportation planning. So again, we look at areas that focus in on how can people get to and from areas of tourism in more efficient ways. So that's something that we want to consider when it comes to screening and scoring of projects within the long-range transportation plan. And then finally, we looked at transportation resiliency. We looked at air quality. So we charted the clean air ozone history within the Richmond region. We looked at air quality alert days, the history of that throughout the Richmond region. And then we looked at the PM 2.5 annual 3-year average within the region. So this looks at the fine particulate matter in the air, defined as particulates 2.5 micrometers or less in diameter. We also look at the environmental resources that we have within the region, system security, and then natural hazards. Again, we want to understand where are the vulnerable areas and how does that coincide with the transportation network as we look at project scoring going forward. So what are the next steps for the Richmond Region State of Transportation Report, excuse me? So of course, this will be technical report C within the 2050 LRTP. Ongoing, this is a main information collection process for the MPO. As the MPO, we want to be the main body that holds much of the data that is needed within the region. This document is intended to inform policy and investment, as well as track the progress and trends within the area and then identify challenges and opportunities. I have provided a link here in the report that will be sent out to you, and we want your feedback. Any and every feedback is going to be needed for this document as we move forward, not just for the 2050 LRTP, but as we go forward with other LRTPs in the future. And then again, the data collection process that we are tasked with as the MPO. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can definitely send that to myself. And as of right now, I want to kick this off to Carrie to discuss the LRTP story map. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Dorian, we have a question from Mitch. It's saying, are you considering Richmond's bike share program in micromobility?
Yes, we are considering the bike share program. We're looking at any and every micromobility program that we can showcase within the Richmond region, because we want to make sure that we're covering all our bases as well. So the bike share program is something that we want to focus on as well as the scooter program.
Dorian, you're still sharing your screen.
Thank you for that.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Let me stop sharing here.
There we go. Can everybody see my screen now?
All right, awesome.
Yes. Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Carrie. I hope everybody can hear me. I am presenting on the existing story map conditions. That's not great. It's not moving slides. One second, hold on. Okay. Not working. Okay. Can everybody see my screen now? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna be talking about the story map. So where the story map fits in to the rest of the documents is it's kind of the smallest and most palatable for most people. So there's a lot of visuals in it. There's a little bit of text to complement the visuals, but it's really more about the visuals so you can understand and see everything at a glance. The other technical documents, B and D, are both also incorporated into technical document C, which is the state of transportation that Dorian just talked to us about. Reports B and D are the pavement conditions and structure conditions, and then report D is the congestion management process. So just to give you a little bit of a background, and then these over here are also included in the story map. So instead of talking to you about it and showing you screen grabs, I am actually going to take you to the story map itself. Oh my goodness. And so here's the link. And then I'm also going to share my screen so we can go through it together. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions or comments, or if there's anything that you want to spend some more time on. So Sid is the person that gave us this lovely photograph. He takes wonderful pictures around Richmond. This is our introduction. And we have a little bit of a basic overview. So for most of the maps, we'll have this right here that shows us everything we need to know. But there's also a little bit more. So for some maps, there's sliders where you can see two things at once. Like this, so the menu is not automatically visible. So you then click here and you can see the exact portions of that. And what's really cool about these is you can compare two different things with it. And you can also zoom in and get some real live, or not live updates, but you can see it and it's very responsive. And it's also got road names on it, so that helps a lot. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to spend some time on specifically? Okay, we're going to go through congestion management. So basically this shows that most of the roads are in pretty solid condition compared with congestion. Most of them are green, which is good. I personally made this map and I tried to make it resemble Google Maps or Apple Maps when you're traveling so that it's pretty intuitive to know. So red is, more congested, yellow is a little congested, and green, depending on the shade, basically means there's no congestion or very minimal congestion. So as you read along on the left-hand side over here where my mouse is, you can see that it'll talk about what's going on over in the right-hand side where you then have all of these different pieces of data where you can go, okay, I live over in this area. I really want to zoom in and get an idea of what's going on in that specific area. And so that I can really, or I/you can really feel heard and seen and then really have some context to back up opinions and thoughts and all of that. But yeah, that's the pavement conditions. It's like I said, the most condensed version. It does tend to be very visual. These are our structures and pavements, or our pavement conditions, what we just went through as our structures. So that way we can see specifically what's going on, any type of potentially dangerous interferences. There's also, as you can see here, Henrico and Richmond do not have nearly the amount of data that the other areas, especially like Chesterfield, do. That's because they have their own slightly different system. So we didn't include it in that map. We had a more zoomed in version on this map where you can see each individual street. But yeah, then we have toll roads where we go into even more depth on different specific roads. Like I said, and so as we're moving along, I don't know if you guys can see, but these little indicators are also changing so that we can then have an easier to understand map. Like I said, still just following through all those. We have Powhite extension too. And then for freight, we've got all of this. Like I said, the legend is right here, so we can go through that. We can see everything that is on this map and potentially going to be relevant for us. That's my cat, sorry about that. And then, yeah, we have park and ride. And then we have transit, where we can talk about all of that kind of different stuff. And this shows the routes and the bus stops. And so, like I said, you can zoom in on all of these. Yes, do we have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if it's possible to add the microtransit zones to. Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind.
Answered the question right there for
There you
you.
go.
So to answer that, yes, it is possible. And then so for each of the zones, we then do go into a little bit of an in-depth, conversation on that. We do also have potential zones or proposed zones there too. So yeah, we also differentiate those with color. And as you can see, as we're going through, they're being the one that we're discussing in the moment is being highlighted in red. But yeah, the idea behind this was to make it more like a magazine to instead of having it like a textbook, if that makes sense. And so for some of them, we were lucky enough to already have really in-depth, wonderful story maps already made. I see there, sorry, we have a question in the chat. I am not sure where we can source the pavement data, but we can get back to you on that. And then, so for some of them, we had where they were already fully fleshed out story maps. So we were able to then add those in to direct people to resources that we already have, which was wonderful. So thank you to the active transportation team for that. And I know we all care about fall line a lot over here. So we have this lovely map. We also have this lovely story map for that, where we can, redirect people to some already made resources. Yes, Amy, we can definitely include some of the Bay Transit and all of that in for New Kent. That's a great note. And then we do have some community development statistics included in here, commute time, and then we have a nice little conclusion at the end. So is there anything anyone wants to go back to touch on, or really, have an opportunity to look at? Okay, I'm hearing none. All right, sounds good. But yeah, yes, we have another question.
Yeah, I think towards the beginning of all the story maps, I was kind of wondering, let me see if I can pull it back up on my side. Just I think the high injury networks. See if I pull it up. It's a little slow. I was wondering, I'm like, what is the slider showing? Yeah. Like what's the left, what's the right? Besides just, is it just like showing just the network?
So it's showing basically the high injury network on the right-hand side, this purple line, and then on the left-hand side, we just have the fatalities and severe crashes.
Okay.
So you can kind of,
That's the only difference.
yeah. As far as I know, I might be told differently by a coworker if that's what it's showing. Cool. Okay. But yeah, and I mean, as you can see, you can get really close in and get a really detailed view of this. And this is also true for any of the other maps. This is, you can really get down to, this is my house, this is my commute, this is something I'm very familiar with, and you can really like see the science or see the data behind it, which is awesome. Yeah, in my opinion.
Okay. And then on the congestion management process map, I just want to confirm that like what is the left and the right? I know the right side is looks like it's the one with congestion, but the right side looks like it has different
So
metrics or like yeah.
I believe the left side is the morning. So this part
Okay.
over here where my mouse is, where Richmond is, and then over here on the other side is the PM congestion.
Okay.
And this is based on LOTTR.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah.
If possible, I definitely recommend making that more like blatantly clear because I was like, what is it showing me? Like,
Yep, we can definitely do that. We can absolutely do that.
yeah.
We have another question.
Yes. So what thresholds did you use to delineate the levels of congestion, right? That varies from place to place. So what do
Yes.
you define as green? What do you define as yellow, red, and others? Thank you.
I believe they're right over here. Yes. So we can add that more explicitly. This doesn't say specific colors, but we will add that in to be a little bit more on the nose, so to speak. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, we have something in the chat. Oh, yes, you can click on the maps. So I think this might. There we go. So there you can see the exact statistics that are behind it. I believe they do show frequency. And there's also a navigation tool at the top, which helps a lot. So when we go to transit, wait for the map to load for a second, and then I believe they do shows frequency. Yeah. So this would be a frequency of 30 minutes. This one is every 60 minutes. But yeah, that's maybe something we could add into the left side of the panel, and we can have it so that it's a little bit more explicit on exactly what means what. So just in case people aren't clicking on the little hamburger over here. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm not hearing any of it. I know people have opinions. All right, Guy, what's up?
So when displaying the frequency of the local routes, there's a lot of situations like the 2ABC and the 1ABC that those routes will interline for a good portion of their trip, and the combination of those three routes running on the same road, you'll have areas where they're staggered, and the frequency for that corridor is more than what the individual 2A frequency might be. Like when you clicked on that, I think you clicked on the 2C, it showed that it was, or the 2A here, that it's 60 minutes. But where they interline, you'll have frequencies more like 15 minutes in the northern areas of Manchester and all of that. Is there a way to sort of display, that combined routing frequency for our local routes that interline like this?
I'm sure there is. We can definitely look into that and figure out something with that. I might want to jump on a call with you or someone else at GRTC to, troubleshoot that a little bit, if that would be okay.
Yeah, we can set something up.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else comments, questions, concerns? Anything they want to troubleshoot or talk through at all? I'm not hearing any, so this is your last opportunity. Kenneth, what's up? Do we have any other questions?
Okay, any further questions for Carrie or Dorian? Okay. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Dorian.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's go into the next item. Let me share my screen back again. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. I think before I go into this, I saw a question from Mitch, which said, "Is 895 not considered a freeway?" I definitely is. I think that was the error in that map, and we'll definitely change that. Is there any other question? I may just have seen a hand raised.
Yes. Hi, Sulab, it's Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
I was a slow typer in the chat. So my question was just about the microtransit zones, wondering if Harry, if the information is included that the current zones are pilots and that if there's not like jurisdictional support for them, I think it's after 2 years, and of course, Guy, correct me here if I'm wrong, but if there's not jurisdictional support for the current zones, that then they won't continue to operate.
The microtransit operations is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse as to how that's all set up. I can certainly take note and communicate that to our microtransit planning.
I am not sure. I can go through and look, and then I can also, if there's not, I can make sure that we add that. So that's a really good point to add.
Yeah, they're pilots for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, let's go into LRTP phase 5, which is basically what are the options. So basically what we do is based on the needs we have assembled in task 4, we try to develop a solution for those needs, a tangible solution. That's the translation project. That's what we do in phase 5. So the major things which we do is basically what we are discussing today. We start with that, regional project selection guidelines, and then we develop the universe of candidate projects, and obviously based on what is the cost of each project, we also calculate what is the total funding requirement across all modes through 2050. The outcomes or the deliverables are basically the regional inclusion guidelines, and then a spreadsheet of universe of regionally significant multimodal transportation projects. And we can obviously map those as well so that we can see them visually. The adoption date, once this group recommends it, it goes to the policy board. And the adoption date tentative is December 2025. So we haven't finished the needs yet. So once we finish the needs, then we develop the projects. You will have a lot of time to review and finalize. So yeah, all these months between now and December, we'll be working on developing and finalizing those multimodal transportation projects. So this is a diagram or a flow chart showing the transportation improvement program and regional funding eligibility, which is kind of a guidelines in our agency. So we have a project, and based on what we define, it can be a regional project, or it can, if it's not a regional project, then it's considered a local or a programmatic project. So to get any regional funds, including the biannual RSTP, CMAC, and other funds, if it's a local and programmatic project, it doesn't have to be in the LRTP, it's eligible. But if it's a regional project and it's not in the LRTP, it's not eligible, and it has to be amended. So recently, 64 improvements in Henrico County near Swat Pump, that was not included in the long-range transportation plan, last long-range transportation plan. So we had to amend the LRTP to include that project. So if it's a project of regional significance, that magnitude, it has to be in the LRTP. And if it's in the LRTP, then it's fine. It's already eligible. So there's no concern about that. So we start with that. And then this is the main discussion item today. So what are the projects which are regionally significant? And that should be in the LRTP. So we are definitely looking at projects with a bigger magnitude, regional nature, those kind of things. So let's start with the roadway projects. So I discussed with you the LRTP road network. So we are saying that any projects to be qualified to be in the LRTP has to be in that LRTP roadway network, which is basically the NHS plus the primary highway. And what kind of projects would be qualified? So any capacity change, if we are adding a lane, removing a lane, changing the use of lane, or making it a hot lane or a HOV lane or a bus only lane, then that counts as a project. So we don't have any high occupancy lanes or high occupancy toll lanes in the Richmond region. We have that in Northern Virginia. We have that in Hampton Roads as well. That might be a strategy in the future. Who knows? But I think any such changes would be qualified as a project in the long range transportation plan. Any realignment, extension, or relocation of those roads which are already in the LRTP road network. Any new interchange, any new major interchange modification on our interstate or freeways, any overpasses or underpasses in the LRTP road network as well. A major intersection improvement. So this is a little bit tricky. So it has two things. It has to be a major intersection improvement. So we have a dollar value to it. So it has to be more than $10 million, the budget. And then the other thing is what we are suggesting is that both legs of the intersection has to be in the LRTP road network for that intersection to be qualified. And then obviously we would have new roads in the future. So again, if the road has that magnitude to be in the LRTP road network, so any new road or alignment which we think would be in the LRTP road network based on the definition we have now, that project should be in the long range transportation plan. So that's the roadway projects, new projects. Then we have the bridge projects, which is basically the replacement and rehabilitation. Any new bridge projects, which is part of capacity change, would be considered as a roadway project rather than a bridge project. But anything to do with replacement or rehabilitation, if the bridge is structurally deficient, then that's the good state of good repair project. So obviously, any bridge which is in the national bridge inventory and also in the LRTP network with a poor or cusp bridge condition rating. So poor is, as I mentioned earlier, 1 to 4 general condition rating, and cusp bridges is the 5, which we would see likely deteriorate in time. So if it's a 5 now, it's likely that it's going to be 4 or 3 eventually by 2050. So it has to be either of those bridges to be qualified to be placed in the long range transportation plan. Transit projects. So just want to mention that only capital improvement projects would be in the LRTP. Any changes in operations is not would not be in the LRTP. So any fixed route projects, new bus rapid transit corridors, any infrastructure required to build those, expansion of the existing BRT corridors. If you are expanding the Broad Street East End or West End, wherever, that's qualified. And it's just aspirational that I added light rail corridor because if you were like me in Richmond for a long time, I think there was a lot of talk about light rail corridor before the BRT was here. So again, if that's the case, that should be there. Broad Street might be a likely candidate to have light rail, but I don't think we have any discussions. But just wanted to put that here as well. And then major transit system improvements. So if we are adding any new transit hubs, centers, not transit stops, but hubs, transfer centers, those kind of things, the capital cost would be should be in the LRTP. Any relocated transit hubs and centers. And then obviously a significant upgrade to existing transit infrastructure. So we have added a dollar value because the definition of significant might be difficult. So anything which is more than $10 million, which is required to upgrade an existing system. It could be a group of project lump sum together, but individual stop level improvement won't count. So if it's a region-wide, locality-wide kind of project, it might qualify to be in the long-range transportation plan. And any large-scale fleet expansion. So anything which is already there and we have to change that. That's basically maintenance. But if we are expanding our network and that requires a new fleet purchase, if we have new routes, and again, that's going to be qualified for the long range transportation plan. And again, we have a dollar value here so that we only take big magnitude projects. So 10 million is something which you'll see in a lot of the things which we have. We haven't have a very good definition on, like here, what is significant. So the dollar values, I think, give us that definition. Then we have the transportation demand management project. So any new park and ride lots with 100 new spaces or more. So anything below 100 spaces would be a local programmatic project. It doesn't need to be in the LRTP. You can actually receive funds, regional funds, based on being. But if it's a large scale park and ride lot, more than 100, then it has to be in the LRTP. Same with the expansion. If there's an old existing park and ride lot, and we want to increase the capacity by 100 or more spaces, then it has to be in the LRTP. And then I added this one, the large-scale initiative that aims to reduce single occupancy vehicle travel and promote the use of alternative modes of on a regional level. So not local, not jurisdictional, but if there is a program or a project which would reduce single occupancy vehicle, and it's a big scale project, $10 million or more, anything below that would be local and programmatic and doesn't need to be in the LRTP. But if it's more than that, then it's probably good to have that in the LRTP. Then we have the active transportation projects, the regional trail networks. So development of any multi-use trails that connect significant destinations across Richmond region. So multi-jurisdictional trail like the Fall Rhine Trail, any spurs to Fall Rhine Trail, a major extension of enhancement to existing regional trails. So we already have Capital Trail. We have a Fall Line Trail, which is would be constructed soon. So any extension, enhancements, spurs, those kind of things would be qualified. And then obviously large-scale bicycle infrastructure, protected bike lanes that serve regional travel needs. And if it's a bicycle and pedestrian bridge or underpass, which is on the LRTP network, if we have a lot of bike traffic or pedestrian traffic, and underpass might be needed in the future, and the road and it crosses the LRTP network, then that project likely should be in the long range transportation plan. And then finally, freight and passenger rail projects. Most of these projects would be in the vision list, as we wouldn't have the purview of freight and passenger rail dollars in the constraint plan, but we can list those projects in the as a vision list. But any capacity enhancement to rail projects, so adding lines, those kind of things, grade separations of the roadway corridors to improve safety and traffic flows. So any grade separations to make the corridor high speed, that's should be in the LRTP. Project that provides new rail access to the port, to airports, rail and industry. So basically the industrial access project. New or relocated passenger rail station, so or significant upgrade. I forgot to add that. So we know that the Staplesmith station is going through a significant upgrade. I think $1 billion or more. So that would be qualified. And then any improvement. Any improvement on roadways that function as intermodal connectors. So it doesn't the intermodal connectors are already there in the LRTP, but it doesn't have to be any capacity change kind of project. It could be any project, which could be maintenance, it could be lighting, anything. If it's a big project, let's say Deepwater Terminal Road needs a change, but we are not changing any capacity out there, but it's a major change, then if it's more than $10 million, I think that should be in the LRTP. And then finally, the Port of Virginia capital improvement projects, major projects, so like $10 million or more. So if there is a maintenance issue of $1 million, I don't think so that would be a project which would be in the long range transportation plan. That again would be local programmatic project. But obviously a big project, let's say we need to purchase a new crane. I don't know how much that costs, but it would cost significantly higher than many maintenance costs. So that could be in the long range transportation plan. So that's all I have. This is the first cut, and we can have discussion on this now, or you could provide me comments, concerns, anything, any questions regarding the projects, what we have. Do we have any questions? Okay, GRTC new transfer station and new intercity bus depot. Yeah, I think that qualifies within the what we say as transit hubs and centers, I guess. Other questions?
Hey, this is JJ from Chesterfield. I had a question about the roadway project section. I understand what you all are proposing to get the, must have both legs and the $10 million threshold. I guess my question is really, how would the region be treating, say, recommendations from, say, a STAR study or a pipeline study that all the minor streets are not on the long range transportation plan, but the major road is? Would it make that project not eligible to apply for the regional funds, since the minor roads are not on the LRTP road network potentially?
I think that's up to discussion, I guess. I don't know, what does the group say? I guess the only reason that we have provided both legs should be in the LRTP network is basically to have a threshold, because those are major roads, and I believe the intersection improvement would be costly. But again, if we want to modify that and say that one road would be, at least one road should be in the LRTP road network, and it has a threshold of more than $10 million, then we could, again, that's up to the group to add.
Okay, and then the follow-up to that was just my general thought on what the group is thinking about when we talk about combination projects. So my thought is, say, Chester Road in Chesterfield County is on the Fall Line Trail, but then maybe an intersection improvement that we know is needed needs to be wrapped in with that shared use path for the Fall Line Trail. Would that make that project potentially ineligible for the roadway piece, but maybe eligible for the Fall Line Trail piece for funding?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And we can probably add a seventh category, which would say multimodal projects, which improve not only one mode, but different modes. These breakdown is basically pretty much black and white. So obviously we do have some gray area, and obviously we can think about it. Miles, do you have any suggestions on that?
Not right now. I think getting these comments is helpful for us
Yeah.
because this is just the first time we're proposing it, and so
Yeah.
we can come back with
Yeah.
revisions as needed.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, JJ.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then whenever we move on to the active transportation one, I would also have more comments.
Yeah, we can move it right now. Yep.
Okay, then so for the active transportation project section, I know it was very heavy on the multi-use trails and the protected bike lanes. I think the question is, how are we going to connect you to a GRTC stop or things of that nature, or say a sidewalk job, that, and seeing how that's wrapped into active transportation?
I didn't hear the full question. Seems like my Internet
Can you
was.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I
it
think
says.
it went
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of some of the smaller scale pedestrian sidewalk jobs, but they are regionally significant because they say get you to a regional activity center or a regional bus stop that gets you to other locations, and making sure we're not excluding those from consideration when we're talking about active transportation projects. And then also the consideration of safe crosswalks, which is important for both the bike and pedestrian infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Again, I would like to stress that the magnitude of the project, like if it's more than 10 million, or we can bundle a couple of projects to make that threshold, then I think it should be in the LRTP. Otherwise, as I mentioned, it would be considered local and programmatic project, and you could still apply for that project. It doesn't have to be listed in the LRTP. So not all projects have to be listed to be eligible for regional funds, because if it's a local and programmatic project, you can still apply for those funds.
That makes sense. So thanks.
Mhm.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, JJ. Mitch, do you have a question?
Yeah, more of a comment. Maybe when it like if we go back to like the roadway projects, maybe looking at VTrans needs and like mid and long term, as it relates to kind of the time frame of the LRTP, and deciding or maybe considering like what VTrans needs we want to like at least especially like flag as critical roadway projects when it comes up in stars and pipeline studies. And that could also prioritize or making sure that we have maybe pre-planned or something in place where it's like, hey, this star study is covering this segment of road and it's impacting X VTrans priority that we've established is important. And then making sure we have some, integrating the LRTP into those long range or those stars or pipeline studies.
So we would review all the star studies that would come in the needs itself. So all the star studies have already been reviewed. Any need which is established by the star studies, or any if it's not completed, the issue, because if to have a star studies we need to have some problem, right? That's already would be recorded in the needs inventory, and it would again we are also looking at all the other needs based on all the data sources. So similarly to what VTrans is doing, we'll be looking at all those needs. So I believe that most of those needs would be captured in our needs analysis. And again, here we are not talking about the needs. We are basically talking about the threshold of the projects. So those needs would be captured, and if it meets the threshold for the long range transportation plan, it'll definitely be there. But any needs, whether it reaches the LRTP threshold or not, would be listed in the spreadsheet, which would be, I think you'll have a first look of that in next month.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, this is Trip. I had, you actually, one of the things when I saw the agenda packet, you said was going to be amended was a significant upgrade of rail stations. I think is glad to hear that's going to be added to the list. And your comment about bundling may have gotten some of my other questions and concerns, and your answer to some of JJ's questions. Because I was wondering, what about if you have several places where you have these $10 million thresholds, but for example, under transit, say you don't have a total of 10 million of new bus purchases or 10 million of infrastructure, but you're doing a combined project like buying some electric buses and charging infrastructure that could be well over 10 million, but each one might not. So I think maybe just somewhere, maybe it's just a footnote to the whole thing that bundling is a way to get by these $10 million limits. Because I think that's something we should recognize. Also under roadway projects, and again, maybe idea of bundling gets to this, but I'm thinking about major corridor studies and overhauls that could be a combination of some safety improvements, could be speed reduction. It might not actually change the capacity, and would want to be sure that, like a corridor overhaul, there was a pretty. You might definitely have a threshold to that of a 10 million or more or something like that, but I think that it might not necessarily fit into any of these discrete roadway project categories.
Yeah, both of your points make sense. And that's what we want. We want, rather than safety improvement in a very localized intersection, if we do a safety improvement to the whole corridor, I think that would be a significant big project.
Right.
And that can be added. It doesn't specify here. I think we can add that here as well. Normally, the intersection level project is local programmatic. It doesn't have to be in the LRTP. So that's why we consider that. But Miles, do you have a comment or question?
No, I think I just want to maybe clarify a little bit that the intent on not including those projects, or the reason that we don't have them listed currently, is to make it easier to implement them. So otherwise, every safety project would have to go through the LRTP amendment after we do the study. By putting that in that local programmatic category and setting aside funding for it, we don't have to get into the details of every single safety improvement. So the intent is to make it easier to implement those sorts of projects.
Absolutely. And I definitely was not suggesting that every safety improvement be in there. I was just talking about, like, say, a major corridor overall. I mean, think about like the Lothian Turnpike or something, where there, or Hull Street, where there's some pretty widespread issues, and I could see hopefully at some point that we would do some things that might not add or remove a lane, might not be a major intersection, but would be a quarter-wide effort to improve safety, throughput, maybe not removing a lane. This is kind of ambiguous, but say you took one lane and made it a BRT lane. Anyway, I just want to make sure that those kind of broader quarter-wide projects could still qualify. But I agree with you, you wouldn't want every safety project in here.
Yeah, in similar lines, we were also thinking of any ITS projects which might be corridor-wide, which is also missing in the list. So we do have like smaller ITS projects improvement, which, as Miles said, we don't need that to be in the LRTP. It just makes the process difficult. But again, if it's a corridor-wide thing like safety or ITS, I think we can add one new category saying corridor-wide improvements for safety or ITS or any other categories, if that solves. And then the 10 million threshold is just a number staff came up with. It could be higher. I wouldn't suggest it to become lower than that, because again, it's going to be difficult for the localities if the low number goes down and everything has to be included in the LRTP. So that's just the threshold number we came up with. I think it could be 15 millions, but that's up to discussion as well. Any other comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none. Please provide any comments to the projects. We'll add those which we have discussed now. And hopefully we'll agree to the project selection, at least the projects, which type of projects would be in the LRTP next time, along with the goals and objectives as well. Parallelly, we'll work on finalizing the needs. It's going to be a spreadsheet. It's going to be a big spreadsheet, so you'll have a lot to look at. Hopefully, we'll send that at the agenda next time when the agenda goes. But other than that, I don't have anything else. Do we have any other questions? Okay, none. Seeing none. So yeah, it's 11:52. We got 8 minutes left. If we don't have anything else, the next meeting is on May 28th, same time, Wednesday, 8 a.m., 10 a.m. via Zoom. May 28th, the fourth Wednesday of May. So other than that, if there's no questions, I think we can conclude this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope you have a good day today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.